la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya ya la 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 ya la ya la ya la ya ya la 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 ya la la ya la la la.
Good Yontif, good morning. We welcome you this morning as we know we'll be sharing most of this day together. Again, we've tried to plan the day so that in between each of our services you'll have a chance to break away from Zoom and to catch your breath. You're welcome to go anytime during the day into the schmooze room and just spend some time talking with your friends and other congregants. And also there'll be other alternative opportunities during the day. As now we continue. From the Carter Brooksons, the Shana Tova Umituka Uvriya, a good and sweet and healthy year to all of you.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year, Shana Tova from the Rusink family. Can you say Shana Tova?
Hey, Shana Tova!
Very good.
Wishing all a Shana Tova, a happy, healthy, sweet New Year.
Hi, everyone. Shana Tova from Seattle, from Mom and myself to Milwaukee. We wish you all a happy and sweet and healthy New Year.
Absolutely, I agree. Every bit of it.
All right.
On behalf of the Costin Halpern family, we wish all of you Shana Tova Umetuka. May it be a sweet, healthy, happy, meaningful, good new year to all of you. May 5781 be a fantastic year, and may it improve all of our lives. Looking forward to seeing all of you soon.
On behalf of the Malmans, I hope that the year 5781 is a year of kindness, kindness for ourselves and kindness for each other.
And I pray that in the coming year, we spend more time with all of you and less time with our electronics and our video cameras. May it be a good year.
On behalf of the Nankin family, I send peace, good health, happiness, safety, wishes for the coming year.
The Berman, Mendelson, and Courtney family wish you and yours a very happy and healthy New Year. Gamar Hatima Tova.
On behalf of the entire Hirsch Appel family, Toby and I would like to wish you all a very sweet New Year.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
A happy, healthy, and peaceful New Year from the Kahns family.
Wishing everyone a happy New Year with good health and a renewal of spirit.
To our wonderful congregation, Deborah and I wish you a Shana Tova Umituka Uvriya, a happy, sweet, and healthy New Year.
And again, a Shana Tova. We continue now with our service this morning. You'll find most of it in the Machzors. We'll be announcing some pages for those of you who have them, and of course the rest of the prayers will be before you on the screen. We thank you, living and eternal one, for morning light, for the breath within us, for strength and life renewed. Now it opens before us the Sabbath of Sabbaths, gifts of spacious contemplation, mirror for the soul. May we see our lives reflected in the still, clear pool, a day apart, unhurried time and undivided mind. Give us joy in this day that Israel shares, gives us presence and attention, clear vision, a listening heart. We wake to the morning, we open our eyes, we breathe your name.
Elohai, Elohai, neshama, shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, neshama, shenatata bi tehorahi. אתה בראת, אתה יצרת, אתה נפחת בי, ואתה משמרה בקרבי. אלוהי, אלוהי, נשמה, שנתת בי טהורה היא.
I call my soul to give you praise. Eternal, I will celebrate you as long as I live, and sing to my God while I have breath. Baruch atah Adonai asher bi'ado nefesh kol chai v'ruach kol basarish. We give you praise, Eternal One. All life is in your hand, and in your care the soul of every living being, as we continue with the 150th Psalm, page 170.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah bekodsho. Hallelujah, hallelujah, birkiya uzo. Kol hanshama tehaleya. Hallelujah, hallelujah, kol hanshama tehaleya. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
With every quiet breath, let everything that breathes praise God. Hallelujah.
Hamelech Yoshev al kisei ram v'nisa שוכן על מרום וקדוש שמו וכתוב רדנו צדיקים באדוני לישרים נאווה תהילה. יתקדש ויתקדש יראתה, ושפחתה לנחמתה, גם איראן, והמה, ואימרו, ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Like an unbroken current, energy streams from the source, bathing the planet in light, calling forth life, movement, mind unfolding from matter the power to love. And we offer it back to you, our own creative energy, ever dreaming, building, shaping patterns out of chaos, searching out light in the darkness. Creation never ceases, not for an instant. All life is aglow with your light. All things draw sustenance from the source. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot. Our praise to you, Eternal One, Creator of the lights of heaven. You are the one who unites all things, who links life to life in a sacred chain. The forests anchored in the soil breathe air into our lungs. Our faces are reflected in the creatures of earth. We carry the sea within us. Our fate is connected to rivers and deserts, our family a many-branched tree of life. All beings intertwine in you. All are encouraged, all are encompassed in Adonai Echad. Thus no person is an island, no soul exists apart. To say Echad is to know this truth, to see the world whole, humankind undivided. Precious and holy are these words we speak, Adonai Echad. We proclaim you one. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael bi'ahava. Our praise to you, Eternal One. You've singled out your people Israel with love.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
This gen continues on page 189 or before you.
When you love Adonai Elohecha, body and soul, these things I ask of you will be possible. To answer your children's questions about me and believe your answers yourselves, to connect religion to your everyday comings and goings. For example, when you hug them in bed at night with tender words, Shema Yisrael, when you think to say Modeh Ani in the rush of getting them up and out in the mornings, to be alert, to open doors for your children in every waking moment and when they dream. And finally, to remember just why all these things matter. They matter because I, Adonai Elohecha, brought you and your children out of Egypt to be God for you. I am your God, and when you do these things, I will be your children's God.
You took us out of the darkness so that your light might dwell among us. You showed us your power to bring down the powerful, uplift the enslaved, transform the social order. You showed us your strength so that we might remember our own. We carry the Exodus vision wherever we go, lest we forget our sense of liberation, lest we lose the joy of breathing free, lest we grow indifferent and blind to others' pain. So long as we work to make you present, we walk the path of freedom. But if we forget to bring you into this world, then we return to the darkness.
Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh, norat ilot osef ele. שירה חדשה, שיבחו גאולים לשמחה שפת הים, יחד כולם, הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופתחנו מכה יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
In a sense, Unetana Tokef invites the whole community into the truth with which sick and grieving people, all too many this year, live every day. Rosh Hashanah assaults the denial of the healthy, so that on this day the ill, all of us, beset with clear awareness of mortality, are at one with the whole community, all of us knowing the fundamental uncertainty of life. We are made of dust, as the Unetana Tokef concludes. Into dust we return. Like clay vessels we can break, like flowers we fade, and like shadows we pass, and like a dream we will someday pass from sight. This is the truth, and there can be a comfort in standing in the sacred circle of community affirming it, at the same time committing to savor the fragile gift of life that we are given.
ונתנה תוקף קדושת היום, כי הוא נורא והיום, ובו תינשא מלכותך, ויקום בחסד כסאך, ותשב עליו באמת.
In truth, you are judge and plaintiff, counselor and witness. You inscribe and seal. You record and recount. You remember all that we have forgotten. And when you open the book of memories, it speaks for itself. For in every human hand, it leaves its mark, an imprint like no other.
ובשופר גדול ייתקע, ייתקע, וכל דממה דקה יישמע, ומלאכים יחפזון, וחיל ורעדה יוחזון, ויאמרו הנה יום הדין, לפקוד על צבא מרום בדין בדין, כי לא יזכו ועיניך בדין בדין, וכל באי עולם יעברו לפניך, כי בני מרון, כבקרת רועה עדרו, מעביר צאנו תחת שבטו, כבקרת רועה עדרו, מעביר צאנו תחת שבטו, כן תעביר ותספור ותספור ותמנה ותפקוד נפש ותפקוד נפש כל חי כבקרת רועה עדרו מעביר צאנו תחת שבטו כבקרת רועה עדרו מעביר צאנו תחת שבטו ותחתוך קצבה לכל בריאה ותכתוב את גזר דינם.
The great shofar blasts. We hear the alarm. Where is their justice? The terrible dread hangs in the air as we ask. How long will this pandemic endure? How many will suffer? How many will die? How do we endure isolation and separation from friends and loved ones? When will there be a vaccine? What will we encounter in this year? Injustice in our country and in our community. Children detained, separated from their families. Famine worsening. Our climate degrading.
בראש השנה יכתבון וביום צום כיפור ביום צום כיפור יכתבון כמה יעברון
Who shall pass on?
וכמה יבראון
Who shall be as new?
מי יחיה
Who shall be alive even in death?
ומי ימות
Who shall be overcome by the shadow of death even in life?
בראש השנה יכתבון וביום צום גיבור ביום צום גיבור יכתבון מי וקיצו
Who is at a dead end?
ומי לא וקיצו
Who seeks a way to move forward?
מי באש
Who by fiery anger?
ומי במים
Who by cool indifference?
מי בחרב
Who by disparaging words?
ומי בחיה
Who by emotions out of control?
מי ברעב
Who jealously hungers for what others have?
ומי בצמא
Who has an insatiable thirst for others' approval?
מי ברש
Who has no way to stand up shaken by the earthquake of injustice?
ומי במגפה
Who will be sickened by the plague of prejudice?
ומי בחניקה
Who will die strangled crying, I can't breathe?
ומי בסקילה
Whose path ahead is blocked by stones of inequality?
בראש השנה יכתבון וביום צום כיפור ביום צום כיפור יכתבון מי ינוח
Who can relax at her own home?
ומי ינוח
Who has no place to call home?
מי ישקט
Who can feel a sense of peace?
ומי יטורף
And who feels constantly torn in pieces?
מי ישלב
Who finds equanimity?
ומי יתייסר
Who is always suffering?
מי יעני
who lives in the constant uncertainty of poverty,
ומי ישיר,
who doesn't understand the responsibility of privilege,
מי יושפל ומי ירום,
who will be humbled by our common humanity and therefore uplifted.
בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ויום צום כיפור ייחתמון.
On Rosh Hashanah, we write with our hearts. On Yom Kippur, we seal them on our hearts.
ותשובה ותפילה וצדקה מעבירין את רוע הגזרה.
Let our values and our faith, let our love and our desire for justice be pathways to divert what is written, to change what is written and accept what is written with grace. Let repair, prayer, and giving our fair share hold our broken hearts together as we join together to work for a better year.
Sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova bracha, en ha'kesef v'rachayim,
ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד באור פניך כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו אורת חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch Shemo, Oseh
Torah reading for Yom Kippur morning is taken from Nitzavim, from the 29th and 30th chapters of Devarim of the book of Deuteronomy. We were all at Sinai. If I have this correct, thank God. If I have it wrong, my deepest apologies. Andrew and Michael will be chanting from verses 9 to 14 of the 29th chapter of Deuteronomy. Nicole and Rich Masters will be chanting the blessings. Audrey will be reading the translation. You'll be able to find the Hebrew text beginning on page 266 and also before you.
Actually, Margaret Luck will be chanting the verses 9 through 14.
So
And
once again,
it's
my
correct.
apologies to Margaret and to Andrew and Michael.
So we continue with the opening Torah blessing.
Baruch et Adonai HaMavarach.
Baruch Adonai Mavarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMavarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
אמן. אתם ניצבים היום כולכם לפני אדוני אלוהיכם, ראשיכם שבטיכם, זקניכם בשוטריכם, כל איש ישראל. טפכם נשיכם וגרך אשר בקרב מחנך, מחוטב עצך עד שואב ממך, לעוברך בברית אדוני אלוהיך ובעלתו, אשר אדוני אלוהיך כורת עמך היום, למען הקים אותך היום לו לעם, והוא יהיה לך לאלוהים כאשר דיבר לך, וכאשר נשבע לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב. ולא איתכם לבדכם, אנוכי כורת את הברית הזאת ואת העלה הזאת. כי את אשר ישנו פה עמנו עומד היום לפני אדוני אלוהינו, ואת אשר איננו פה עמנו היום.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nota b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Our Haftarah this Yom Kippur morning is taken from the 58th chapter of Isaiah. Belonging ultimately turns us to the other. Leah will be chanting verses 5 to 10 of the 58th chapter and the blessings beginning on pages 275 and then 279, and Mark will be reading the translation.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'neviim tovim, ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים והמת. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו, ובישראל עמו, ובנביאי האמת והצדק כזה, יהיה צום אבחרהו יום. ענות אדם נפשו על החוף כהגמון ראשו, ושק ואפר יציע, על זה תקרא צום, ויום רצון אל אדוני, על זה צום אבחרהו. פתח חרצובות רשע, עתר אגודות מוטה, ושלח רצוצים חופשים וכל מותה תנתקו. הלא פרוס לרעב לחמך, והעניים מרודים תביא בית, כי תדהה הרום וכיסיתו, ומבשרך לא תתעלם. אז יבקע כשחר אורך, וארוחתך מרת תצמח, והלך לפניך צדקך, כבוד אדוני יספך. אז תקרא באדוני יענה, תשבע ויאמר הנני, אם תסיר מתוכך המותה, שלח אצבע ודבר אבן, ותפק לרעב נפשך, ונפש נענה תשביע, וזרח וחושך אורך, ואפלתך כצהריים. גואלנו אדוני צבאות, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק וכל הדורות, האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום הזיכרון הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לכבוד ולתפארת על הכל. אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד, ודברך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך מוחל וסולח לעוונותינו ולעוונות עמו בית ישראל, ומעביר אשמותינו בכל שנה ושנה. מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל ויום הכיפורים.
אמן. יישר כוח.
Mark.
Is this the fast I desire? A day to afflict body and soul, bowing your head like a reed, covering yourself with sackcloth and ashes? Do you call this a fast, a day worthy of the favor of Adonai? Is not this the fast I desire? To break the bonds of injustice and remove the heavy yoke, to let the oppressed go free and release all those enslaved. Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and to take the homeless poor into your home and never to neglect your own flesh and blood on, and your wounds shall quickly heal. Your righteous one leading the way before you, the presence of Adonai guarding you from behind. Then when you call, Adonai will answer. And when you cry, will respond, I am here. If you remove the chains of oppression, the menacing hand, the malicious word, if you offer your compassion to the hungry and satisfy the suffering, then shall your light shine through the darkness and your night become bright as noon.
And my apologies. Thank you, Mark. My apologies to Audrey. We skipped over the translation to Torah that Margaret had chanted, and so we can return to Audrey now. And again, my apologies.
Thank you. You stand this day, all of you, in and child of Israel, and the stranger in the midst of your camp, from the one who cuts your wood to the covenant of Adonai your God, and the oath that Adonai your God makes you this with you this day, to establish you as God's people and to be your God. As promised to you and sworn to your ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And not with you alone do I make this covenant and this oath, but with each one who stands here among us this day in the presence of Adonai our God, and with each one who is not here among us this day.
Thank you. We continue now with Vidui. We continue now with our confessions. Momentarily, you will find it before you, as we also turn in our Sidurim to page 292. Return now, Israel, to the eternal your God, for you have fallen because of your sin. Take words with you and return to God. Ask the eternal, forgive what is wrong, accept what is good. We stand in humility, conscious of our failings. We set before you the wrongs we have done. We trust in your compassion, for you know who we are. Shema Koleno, Eternal One, hear our call. We cannot hope to right what is wrong, to heal what is broken, if we do not first face it. In the words of James Baldwin, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. That is the first step. Take it in this moment of personal confession, as we take a few moments in silence, perhaps some words within you, perhaps some words in your heart, perhaps even privately on the chat, you may wish to share of confession, seeking forgiveness. as we continue on page 296 or before you.
And as we continue, we would ask for those who would like to unmute to join us in Ashamnu, repeating after I sing Ashamnu, or after I say each word, to then as a congregation to repeat that word. Ay, 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 Asha, Agadnu, Azalnu, Arnudofi, ay, 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 Hevinu, Irshanu, Adnu, Hamasnu, Alnu Shaker, ay, 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 Ya'atznu Izavnu, Atznu, Aradnu, Iatznu, Ararnu, Avinu, Ashanu, Ararnu, Ishinu Oref, ay, 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 Rashanu, Ichatnu, Iavnu, Ainu, Itanu.
And what did you do to bring goodness, kindness, justice, and mercy into this world? Al kulam Elohai slichot, chaskenu, amtsenu, barech yadenu. For all of these, God of forgiveness, God of strength and fortitude, bless our hands. If I could see God's face within my heart, I'd see the human face in 1,000 acts of mercy. The one who gives bread to the hungry and shelters the lost, who hears the voice of grief and makes room for the stranger, who brings relief to the blind, the bent, the unjustly imprisoned, and is true to the essence of holy work, resisting evil, healing brokenness, easing pain, and in the end, forgiving ourselves as God forgives us.
Adonai, Adonai, Erachum v'chanun, Erech Chapayim, v'Rav Chesed v'Yemet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה. As we now share Avinu Malkeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu, Ve'alol Aleinu, Ve'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kares Jerem, Ve'cherem Veracham, Avinu Malkeinu, Kalechotzam, Umastin, Ve'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Malkeinu, Amen, Keren, Yisrael Amecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu, Shema Kolenu, Shema Kolenu.
Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Kolenu, hear our call, Adonai Eloheinu, as we strive to hear yours on this day of the heart, this day of repair, this day of healing. Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu, hear our call, eternal our God, show us compassion, and accept our prayer with love and goodwill.
Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu. Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu. V'kabel merachamim uveratzon et tefilatenu, ki shomea tefilot v'tachanuni mata. Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu.
So, I'd like to spend just a few moments talking a little bit. To whom do we belong? What do we owe? How do we engage? In our Rosh Hashanah Seder, we tried to model belonging to family and belonging to congregation. On Rosh Hashanah morning, the first morning of Rosh Hashanah, I talked about belonging to God and God breathing through us. On the second morning of Rosh Hashanah, I touched on belonging to a tribe and to our ancestors, teaching us to see the world through Jewish eyes and not as a rugged individualist. Last night at Kol Nidre, I took that Jewish tribe, if you will, and demonstrated how, perhaps a bit counterintuitively, to turn it outward to others. As I spoke about belonging to the United States, seeking common ground in a country probably more polarized, at least according to Robert Putnam, who one reporter called the national bard of community. He's got a new book coming out. Unfortunately, it doesn't come out until next month, so I haven't had a chance to read it yet. But probably more polarized than any other time since the Civil War. This afternoon, our learning discussion sessions will also be discussing belonging, with Magda Peck through her professional and personal lenses of public health, Jonathan Weinberg, son of Rabbi Dudley Weinberg, Aleph HaShalom, through his collection of his father's writings, which he wrote with his sister Myra, called Becoming Kaddish, and Chelsea Cross, who grew up in this congregation, on the challenges of belonging by being a Jew of color. All this as Jonah, which we will be studying in a very different way this afternoon, and Aleinu bring us fully into the world. As I understand it, at least thanks to being directed to this, turned down to this by Magda, belonging has become a big buzzword in corporate speak, even if at times its meaning to specific corporate entities is kind of fuzzy. And so doing my profound research, which really just involves going online through Google, I was amazed at how deeply it has entered into the corporate world. No longer is it just diversity or diversity and inclusion. The proper language today is diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Diversity should kind of be a fact established by a number, thus ensuring a wide variety of people have seats at the proverbial table. Inclusion is a step which takes diversity further. It's a behavior, making sure that all those people at the table have a voice. But belonging is more of a feeling, a sense that all the people at the table can be themselves, yet still feel part of a community with a purpose. Such is interesting in a setting wherein you might think that people survive by competing with each other, when in reality, they truly grow by cooperating with each other. It should come then as no surprise that as other forms of social capital have diminished, businesses would be stepping into the gap. But so many other forms of belonging remain, albeit diminished, from civic organizations to fraternal clubs to women's groups, from reading circles to athletic clubs, and yes, to go all the way back to Robert Putnam from 2 decades ago, even a few bowling leagues are around. Still, concentric circles with family and religion congregation at the center. It was French sociologist, and I think also son of a rabbi, interestingly enough, Émile Durkheim, who wrote that religion is less about believing and more about belonging. For belonging teaches belief. So I want to use Talmud as an example, which is something that I hope I'll be able to do some teaching with to some of you in the coming year. It is our compendium of oral law composed of the Mishnah, and then the commentary on it known as the Gemara. And we Jews are supposed to do two things. We're supposed to study Talmud, and we're supposed to follow Jewish law. But as Micha Goodman pointed out at Hartman this summer, if you open up the Talmud, open it up to a daf, to a page, looking for a specific law, you would never find out any specific law. You'd never find out what the law is. Instead, you'd find argument after argument after argument about the law. In fact, you might even find arguments that led to other arguments that you would think have had nothing to do with the law, but surely had to do with the argument previously that would then somehow connect to the next argument. On the other hand, if you were to open up the Roman canon, you would find law after law after law very clearly. But the Talmud, you find arguments and disagreements and what seem to be conversations galore. The Talmud is then, in Professor Moshe Harbeltal's words, a canonization of disagreement. So studying Talmud involves studying opinions that one is never going to live by. In other words, one is obligated to listen to a voice that one isn't necessarily going to follow practically in life. And often Talmudic heroes are those who can find the most examples to prove the opposite of what the Jewish law might be. To use psychologist and feminist Carol Gilligan's terms, this is what you might call radical listening. Instead of judgment, we're supposed to enter the text with curiosity. And in fact, the reality is we're not even supposed to enter the text by ourselves. We're supposed to enter the text in our chevruta, with our study partner. So already, even here and now, perhaps even before we engage the text, we've already kind of been sensitized to learning with somebody else, whose perspective might be a little different, whose understanding, because he or she has walked in different shoes, might be a bit different than your own. So with curiosity, not judgment, you then enter the text in a very different way. There isn't anxiety at the same time. Radical listening, curiosity, empathy. Well, radical listening, curiosity, empathy do not mean accepting another's opinion. At the same time, when you work like this, when you study like this, it makes one more creative. It changes one. And it somehow makes room for new growth. And in the process, it brings people together. It's why I might have heard somewhere in Israel, someone cracked the joke about Israel being the startup nation and how technologically and in terms of IT, it has become so advanced for exactly this reason. But on the other hand, in terms of political arguments, it stagnates because it's not approached in the same way. So too in prayer. And so this afternoon, as we engage in the book of Jonah, Scott will be reading it, of course, as always, but we will be approaching it differently. We will be studying it, and we're going to try to study it somewhat in chevruta through breakout groups. And so I'm going to want you to approach that text when we come to it with curiosity, maybe even with some excitement. You're going to be studying with somebody else, perhaps someone you've never met before. And also this afternoon, when we kind of end our afternoon service with Aleinu to approach our Avodah service, I want you to listen very closely to that prayer also. You see, it's a prayer we say so often that we tend to take it for granted. It generally closes every worship service in which we participate. And if we were davening in a more traditional setting, you might be amazed at how quickly it is davened. It is composed of just 2 paragraphs, and it served as our concluding prayer for maybe 700 years. For those of you of a certain age, like me, you may remember what we used to call it the Old Union Prayer Book. It was the Adoration. But the prayer long predates its service's conclusion. While the origins are pre-Christian, we can surely date the beginning of the prayer to the 3rd century Babylonian teacher Rab. And its original position in the liturgy, which we used last week, and it kind of will be this afternoon, was to introduce the most dramatic stuff that takes place in our service. To introduce, obviously, the sounding of the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, and then the reenactment of the Yom Kippur ritual in the temple in ancient times. And so we will again kind of do that this afternoon, as we did back on Rosh Hashanah, acclaiming God's sovereignty with the shofar, and then preparing to enter our Avodah service. It's sung very differently, and much more dramatically and majestically by our cantor. And as the music changes, so does our choreography. So these are the brief points I want you to take away from it this afternoon, along with the book of Jonah. It begins with the fact that we can be particularistic. We are Jewish. So if one were to look at Aleinu, if you want to take a look at the version we will be doing this afternoon, it's on page 432. Those of you who have Moxers at home, please take a look. It begins with Aleinu. That means it's upon us. It's incumbent upon us. We must do. It's our duty. And then the question is, what's our duty? The Hebrew words follow, Shabeach Ladon HaKol, to praise the, I'm trying to come up with a different translation than the source of everything. And then it continues, L'tet Gedula Liotzer Bereshit, to give praise to the creator of beginnings, the creator of all things, the maker of creation. That part is fine. It's the rest of us that probably would make us uncomfortable, which you're not going to read in the English here. Because it goes on to say, Shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, who hasn't made us like all the other families of the earth. V'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adamah, who didn't place us like all the other families of the earth. Shelo sam chalkenu kehem, who hasn't given us a fate like all the rest of them. V'goralenu k'chol hamonam, or a destiny as all the rest of them. It is horribly particularistic. It's not a prayer. It's really a statement, a proclamation, addressed, if you will, to the world, referring to God in the 3rd person, not the 1st person. God took us as a treasured people. We took the eternal as our God. This wasn't even God's first covenant. That he established with Moses much, much earlier, with just 7 commandments. I take a business person tell me the difference between a limited partnership and a general partnership. That shows how much knowledge I have of business, as I was talking about DIBs before. But if Noah got the limited partnership, we got the general partnership, including 606 more commandments that we had to observe as we were to go out and then heal the world. God chose us to refute idolatry, and our first task was to make this one and only God known throughout the world. And so if you were to go down further on the page, the 4th Hebrew line up, it says, V'yadata hayom. So what do we know this day? That's what we know, and that's what we're going to proclaim. But in our most particular moment, who is the God that we're supposed to make known? It wasn't the God of Abraham, who sent him out to the promised land, or who Abraham thought sent him up to offer his son up as a sacrifice. It wasn't the God we met with at Sinai. It was the God who was the maker of heaven and earth, the one of creation, the one who saved Noah. That's the God that we're supposed to be, if you will, proclaiming. And then what do we know? You know this because you know the words. Vanaknu korim mishtach avimu modim. that we bend the knee and bow in awe. The words are at the end of the first paragraph. And so we do it, some of us bend our knees, some of us bow at the head. But that's not what we're going to do this afternoon, nor what we did on Rosh Hashanah. That's where it's very dramatic. What we do is we literally place ourselves completely down on the ground, prostrating oneself before God, if you will. This is what caused the German Jewish philosopher Franz Rosenzweig to rediscover his Judaism almost 100 years ago. How more dramatically could we portray God's sovereignty? How better show God as monarch, as ruler, by literally doing that? We Jews don't do that any other time. We're really not telling God, that God is the ruler. God knows that. We're reminding ourselves, even if we forget much of that the rest of the year, that ultimate power doesn't rest in our hands, but in God's. We might want to try it this afternoon. It will feel funny at first, but only at first. And the third thing we learned from Aleinu, that we are concerned with salvation. That's what we're supposed to do. That's why God chose us at Sinai. And that's what this second paragraph of Aleinu is all about. If you look, if you will, at the top of page, 433, it begins with Al-Kain. That's Hebrew for therefore, thus. This is what you got to do. Okay? So now in this second paragraph, if you look at the first page as the first paragraph, we're talking to God directly. It's no longer in the third person. And what's our task? It is the third line from the bottom of that paragraph, the Taken Olam b'malchut Shaddai, to perfect, to fix the world under the reign of God, under the dominion of God. That's what we have to do. We go from the very particular to the universal. That's the story of Jonah. That's the story of who we are. That's what we will be talking about this afternoon. And with that, we turn to conclude our morning service. It will be before you. I think this one, Cantor?
I'm not sure which slide. What?
Then I have it wrong in my notes. So?
What are we concluding with?
I guess we'll just conclude with by saying something, unless you would want to sing something at this point.
We could sing Shema Kolenu again, or we could...
I think we were going to do a slightly different version with Shema Kolenu. Is that possible? I could well be wrong. I've made so many mistakes already this morning.
No.
My apologies.
Maybe I'll just conclude one more time with the Shema Kolenu. Hear our voice, O eternal our God. Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu. Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu.
So let us hope that God continues to hear our voice, our call. We will resume, those of you joining us at the first study session with Magda Peck. That will be in about 15 minutes at noon. I think, Andrew, on the same link on Zoom.
Yes, we're going to end this and then we'll start it again in just a few minutes.
And will it be carried on any of the other platforms also?
Yep, it'll be streaming like everything else.
And we will see you shortly, many of you. Again,